Hello and welcome to episode 31 of our Timberborn Update 7 Iron Teeth Project 1K playthrough here. It's cycle 58, day 3. Where last time, I messed with the orientation of a whole bunch of stuff in the middle here. I tried to expand the reservoir, and folks, I don't think this is going to be what we need to do. It might need to be actually more than this, because you take a look at the irrigation here. This hasn't really changed very much. Not a whole lot. So, we're going to have to mess with it, but I do think going out one more bump here, obviously I can't do this right now, but when we get around to these corners, I think I'm going to experiment a little bit and try to make it so we can irrigate every little bit of this, and who knows, maybe that'll make it look a little bit more interesting as well. But today's the day, folks. Terraforming. All of it. It will be time-lapsed. It will be heavily time-lapsed, but before we can get to that, there's a lot of stuff we have to take care of. First of all, we need to take a final tally of everything that's down here and make sure that it is replaced, or at least accounted for with extra storage upstairs. So, the centrifuge is replaced upstairs, but we're going to need a lot of extract for all the dynamiting we're going to have to be doing to fix the terrain. So I'm actually going to run this one while we're waiting. Explosives factories are not accounted for upstairs. So, in order to fill our storage of 1200, I will turn these back on while we're waiting. Food factories are, at least temporarily, accounted for upstairs, so those are fine. In fact, as we check these things off, I am going to get rid of them. Fermenters, we already know. Oil press, we already know. So that takes care of a whole bunch of stuff there and leaves a whole bunch of junk for us to clean up in a minute. The dirt excavators, while they are on the correct height for cutting, are not on the correct height for just existing, and they will have to go away. Fortunately, we planned for this, and we have these two here, which will now be turned on, and their counterparts over here will now be turned off. We are completely full on dirt, but we will need to have dirt later. I may turn these back on while we're doing some other terraforming stuff, but since it's completely full, no reason to have these running, especially while we're in a deficit for labor, while these pods catch up on giving us new beavers. Oil press is replaced upstairs. Wood workshops are replaced upstairs. They're not running because we have basically full storage. So these I'm not going to get rid of yet because these are load-bearing for power production, but they are paused. The coffee brewery does not have a counterpart upstairs yet. So I don't really have a good place to put this because of how this is laid out. So for lack of any other options presently, I think I will just put that right here. And because of the way this is laid out, I can simply use a power shaft to go across here and then put this right here. And in fact, I won't put that there. I will put that here. So it will just nice and easily connect just like so. I will, however, pause this because we don't need to have a beaver going in there. I'll pause this because we don't need to have a beaver going in there. I'm going to leave the gear workshop down here on because we need to be making a lot more gears. We probably don't need to be making a lot more planks, but I don't really have a reason to turn those off that's very compelling, so that will be fine. This fermenter, however, definitely gets to go away. Don't need it. Just simply do not need it. We have storage for all of the food up here, or in theory we do. Should have having been accounted for, but these are no longer necessary. They're going to be going away, so I'm just going to have these set to empty, which, again, there's not really much I can do about this, except just delete it, let it all go on the ground, and then we may or may not pick it up. But the dirt storage here is going to stay where it is. Explosive storage here is probably fine. And then, of course, all the rest of this is just stuff. The bad water pumps are going to be the big X factor here, because I really don't want to reconfigure all of the bad water stuff until after we have this whole thing redone. And I've gotten a lot of input on what you guys want to see with this, different ideas, and I'm sure people will continue litigating that in the comments. But I think what's going to make the most sense for what we are trying to do is to rotate the flow 90 degrees from this point, have it come out here, and then go in between these two rows of columns for some length of run here. But I'd like to see if I can make this as small as possible while still making sure the beavers can do what they need to do. Because, honestly, late game, we're not going to need much of this. We're only going to need food processing and whatever we want to use for fun. So what we have right now is basically only consuming about 2400 HP if it's running at all. And this is generating just south of 1800. Plus, you know, we have the engines and stuff that are tied into this. So I think there's a universe in which we can just use only the bad water for oh, here we go. Bad tide coming in anyway. I think we can use this to probably make about 3,000 or 4,000 HP if we beef up the design and maybe think about some other alternative ideas. And I've seen a lot of good input for putting in the bad water diversion into the same thing, having it just come by on a separate thing, not touching the ground, which may or may not be feasible at this point based on how we've done this. But the overflow from the reservoir is also a good candidate to be brought into here, and that would require us probably making this a 2-block wide channel. And then that brings in, of course, additional math that will have to be done regarding our waterfalls and all that. But we can't really do this until we have all of the terrain taken care of, because this is going to interrupt all of that mess. I do think I would like to keep the height probably about the same, because I would like the final layer of dirt to be above this in a way that all of the top of this whole thing could be completely covered, which means we don't want to go any higher than this. I mean, maybe 1 block higher, but seeing how we have the terrain here that is going to have, just peel this back, going to have to be dealt with, probably means we're going to need to have a skeleton framework on top of this, and then on top of that put in just regular terrain to be backup supports. Because remember, we have our whole pattern here. This bottom bit's a mess. We still have tons to fix there, and we're going to do that today, don't worry. But this currently, this corner right here, is in the spot where one of these pillars would have to be. And what we can do when we go and, you know, reorient it, this is just put a platform here and then put some dirt on top of it so it matches up. So that brings us to the next order of business, and that is trying to fix all of this mess here. And we've planned pretty well for this, but we've reached the limit of what the beavers can do without having any help to get up to these areas. And this is where this gets kind of stupid, honestly. But I don't really know of any other way to do it except to just come up here and say, all right, it is what it is. Just buckle up. It's time for suffering, etc., so on and so forth. So we will need to have access to all of this. Even if it's going to be super ugly, it is just, you know, we're not going to get any further without having this stuff taken care of properly. It's just not happening. But for the most part, we're probably in a situation where this isn't going to be completely terrible. It's just going to take some time. It is certainly going to take time. So the small number of you who do not like how much I reference that phrase, I am deeply sorry. However, I'm not that sorry because it's just true. That's just how it is. Coffee's recovering nicely over here without our intervention, so that's good to see. I have to be careful what I demolish and what I immediately rebuild, because this amount of trees is not going to cut the mustard. We need more. And there's not necessarily a lot of places left that will be able to plant trees and be sustainably harvested without us messing with some other stuff. But we do have this area right here that I will go ahead and mark for planting. It is outside of our 8x8 sacred center area. And while there's still some stuff that needs to be removed, I do think we can make this happen enough for it to not be completely stupid. And that's another one of those things that needs to go away. Now, when we get over to here, honestly, I just want to completely wipe this clear and just turbo blast with a whole bunch of dynamite. I'm not going to try to set up tunnels or whatever. It's just the way that this was carved out, because the reservoir was on top, because the stream was here, whatever, it was just a mess. It was honestly not the right way to do it. It's just the way that it ended up being done, and that is what it is. So lots and lots of stuff is going to just have to be done the way it has to be done. And I will try, not guarantee, but I will try my best to make it possible for us not to have a completely miserable time just getting all of this taken care of here. So this is in range. I just need to make sure when I'm planting all the stuff that we're not going to run into problems. This beaver can plant. These guys, once the construction's actually done, should be able to come in here and take care of this. They should have access for the most part. Just want to put in a couple more of these ladders in relevant areas. They should be able to reach most of this. Maybe not all. I guess we'll see. Because of how this has been popped in place, we might end up with some problems. But I wish I could delete these and then all of this land would come tumbling down, but because we have these pillars here, they're interconnected enough where it's not going to do that. But most of the rest of this is looking pretty good. This is still, because it's a ladder that still needs to stay there, it's all going to get taken care of in time. So I don't want a time-lapse start without, accounting for all of this. But I think at this point we're probably okay. Like I said, I'm going to leave the extract running because we need to be able to use it so we can make all of the double, triple dynamites, all that, and, these things take it too. So without having access to build another thing connected up here, probably we'll just need to have that set up. I don't have any tanks for the actual fluid up here. And I do have a big one for extract somewhere. Okay, it's right here. But that's going to need to move. And unfortunately, I don't have enough gears to really do much of anything. So you see how quickly this becomes a problem. This, for the extract, is going to have to be placed here. Just because that's somewhere where it will sit. And right next to this, because this is the space that I have with the land that I have, will be bad water. Yes, I know I need to have like 80 gears for this to happen, and I don't currently have 80 gears, so gear workshops become prioritized by haulers, and then I will probably need to make at least a few more to try and keep up with everything we're doing. Again, everything just takes time. It really does. But so long as we can get the right stuff taken care of in the right amount of time, I think we're going to be fine. So, the stuff that's laying on the ground, I'm not going to like spend my whole life trying to pick up every little last piece of rubble. It will eventually get picked up, or I will just delete it. That's just how it has to be, because if I did that, then I'm sure I'd have 1,000 angry people like, you're wasting too much time, just get on with it, get on with your life. So, that's the way it is. So what's going to happen now is I will have this time-lapse begin, and we will hopefully be able to see them taking care of a lot of this space underground, getting everything blasted away, whatever needs to get done, and move on from there into the fun part, which is going to be blasting away and building terrain and all that fun stuff. But we'll have more to say about that when the time comes, and hopefully that will become a little bit more digestible than it has been in the past, because I know a lot of you are just done with that. You don't want to see any more terrain building, you want to see other stuff take place, and we'll try to make it happen. But it will just take time, and I will see you on the other side. Okay, let's end this time-lapse here. And we've managed, with almost everything taken care of, managed to get this bottom layer pretty much perfectly good to go. I couldn't quite delete everything. And yes, this little ladder will go away. It will be okay. It'll be fine. We'll move on. I have to fix a couple of small things, and then we can move on to the next level. But it's a little tricky, as you've seen, trying to get all of these different things taken care of without just blasting down from the top and taking care of everything else. But at long last, trees being disrupted aside, it's more or less fully complete on this level. I know this is still disconnected. I know this is holding up something. Yeah, I'm not going to get rid of that yet. Wait a second, that actually doesn't matter. That's not holding up any ground or anything. Alright, well, in that case, bye-bye. And I did have them pick up some of the rubble. The rest of it will be picked up in due time. You know how this goes. But the next level, fortunately, is not quite as insane to deal with and is all reachable from the same spot. I don't have to put in ladders or anything to get the rest of this out of here. But what I do have to do is make sure that these guys can actually access all of this by walking. And yeah, I mean, it's probably fine to just get the top thing out and then use dynamite to get rid of the other one, but I don't think either of us really have the time or the desire to sit here and take care of that. So it will be dealt with in the way that makes the most sense for the amount of time that either of us are willing to spend on this, even if it is technically more wasteful, because that is just the right thing to do. Now, I do need to make sure that I do not have the wrong columns removed, which is going to mean that I do have to sometimes come in here and take care of the rest of this. But I'm pretty sure that is fine, and that might have been the only bit, you know, outside from this that's going to get completely just blasted to smithereens anyway. This should be the only bit that we haven't actually already taken care of, and that will help us get around there. I might as well have this match up my whole scheme about trying to get... Nope, not that. Trying to get all of this in the same distance from the outside. Like, see this corner bit here? That's not irrigated. We need to fix that when we build out the rest of the reservoir, but that should take care of that. This here hopefully doesn't have anything. Okay. Good. This needs to be filled in. We can go ahead and queue that while we're here. They move up to the next floor. And it's kind of the same story with a lot of these holes that need to be filled in and a lot of the stuff that needs to be dealt with appropriately. But it's not going to take a tremendously long amount of time. It's just going to take enough time to be slightly annoying. So, you already know the drill. Just keep on keeping on. Best as we can. This piece does not get removed because it is in the center. But this does, and that does, and that does, and that does, that does not, that does, that does, that does. And then all we have to do the next time around is go around this. And then that should work nicely. Leave that one alone. And then get rid of all of that. So that's going to take care of that bit. How many times can I say the word that? That should be good there. And then up here, a little bit more of the same kind of story, but once again, nothing that we can't take care of with a reasonable amount of time. Now this right here is unfortunate because I'm going to have to come in here and remove... It's not... Okay, there we go. Come in here and take care of that way. And then put a piece of platform down and then put a tunnel on top of it because, yes, that is apparently how that works. Timberborn physics, am I right? Beavers can just get away with whatever kind of architectural hate crimes they choose to inflict upon society, and then nothing happens. But the good news is, the rest of this, minus, you know, the random holes in the ground, is perfectly fine. No problems whatsoever. This does need to have pieces put in, but we have the ability to make it happen. And yes, this is here to facilitate that being there. I can't really do anything else about it at that point in time, and this will have to stay as it is. I can't really add anything else, but I can. Not that this is ever going to be, you know, anything that is strictly necessary, but I can put those pieces back in there. This becomes a hole filled in, and then, you know, that's all she wrote. We just have to make sure that we have our pathways assigned as we said we were going to, which if we decide we want to change that later, then that is a task that we can undertake at that point in time. But for where we are now, all we can do is follow the plan. I say as I very much do not follow the plan. Take this a bit out. Is that on the correct thing that side? Yes, it is. Does it even matter if this all matches up? Probably not. But said I was going to do it, so now we're going to do it. And then we get to the top where, you know, some of the stuff kind of doesn't really matter. It's fine. I know there's stuff here in the middle. It's going to be okay. We're going to survive. We'll get through this. Now, friends, the part some of you have been waiting for and some of you do not care about. We have to demolish all of the stuff that's in the way before we build anything up here. So, I left this running for the time lapse, which is about half of a bad tide and the last couple days of our temperate cycle, in hopes that we would get some more extract. And we have more. We don't have a ton more. So I think that's going to mean this will be the last corner that we mess with. I'm going to leave that running. But what I can do, because we have 900-ish explosives, is we can go into our mine and we can say, wait, it's not using explosives. Never mind. The efficient one doesn't even use explosives either. What am I on here? Okay, well, I am going to take half the workers out of the mine because we're not going to use that much metal probably ever again. At least not until the very end. And instead, we turn our focus over to here where we have to unplant all of our crops, move everything away, get these smelters out of here, get these row houses out of here. Yes, it's the middle of the night. Sorry about it. It happens. Life goes sometimes very poorly. Just have to adapt. This has to be removed for us to build everything else where it needs to go, which means all of these crops will become dewatered, which means they need to be replaced, which means they need to have somewhere to grow. Fortunately, we have plenty of extra space. And yes, with that comes the need to put in additional farmhouses. I know there's a number of you who are quite vocal about how few farmhouses I have constructed. And wait a minute, I've identified another opportunity for us to reclaim some land. Whoa, hold up. Can't do that one. What's that holding up? Oh, of course. How could I be so stupid? That's holding that up. Okay, so we're not going to be building a farmhouse right here, but I can get rid of that because it is pointless. That is also holding up the things. See, this is why you pay attention when you build things, because eventually you're going to make a decision that's really, really stupid, and you're going to be left scratching your head thinking, what the heck was I on? But we have cassavas here. We have canola. We have soybeans. We have corn. What do we not have? Eggplant. What do we need to have? Eggplant. What are we planting? Eggplant. There you go. This is already dealt with, so I will unplant every last square of this level and that level, trees, so on and so forth. I am hesitant to get rid of the pines yet, because we do not have a lot of pine resin. So what I will need to do is I will need to make a storage somewhere that will support gratuitous quantities of pine resin. The only thing I can think of at this exact moment to do is to just put in, because this is a space that is available, it's not staying here, don't worry, it's going to be okay. I'm just going to build a large warehouse exclusively for pine resin, have our tapper shack, do tapper shack activities, get what we can get out of this, and then tear them all down. Now, we did plant additional pine trees here, and we do, now that this is all completely dealt with, have the option of expanding our pine growth into a place that is going to produce adequate quantities of pine resin. So, that will involve planting additional pine trees. That will also involve having a tapper shack. So let's commit right now before I actually get myself in trouble here. I guess this is fine right here. Just put this tapper shack here. Long term, we're probably not going to need a ton of pines, but for right now, this is what we have to work with. This guy can tap. This can plant, but it can't plant everything. So we will run into some interesting problems with trying to plant things because this requires 4 high clearance, and I don't have 4 high clearance anywhere else on the bottom of the map. So, yeah, that's because I built the tanks where I built the tanks. There's nothing in the tanks right now, which means if I were to get rid of this large tank, just this one, I should, in theory, be able to reach further into this corner. I'm going to try it, and because I don't ever cut out mistakes, see the most recent Water Beavers episode, if this doesn't work, you get to call me stupid and be justified. So this is the current border here. If I get rid of this, wow, look at that. We got some extra space. Now, we didn't get tons, but we got enough for me to plant extra pines here. And then, you know, eventually we can just unplant the edge and they'll fill the rest of this space in. But this will do a massive service to us having additional pines, even if it's not as many as we would really prefer to have. It will still be a very, very helpful thing for us to have access to that. And yes, I am going to have them clean up all the junk on the ground. But even if I didn't, we'd still be totally fine. Life would go on just fine. So, they're taking care of all this mess. We've unplanted all of this. Yes, there is still junk on the ground. And we also need to get rid of all this, because we have to blast every little piece of this out. And I don't have enough storage for any more eggplants. Well, if I sat here and waited for this to be perfect before I did anything, that would be a tremendous mistake. What I can do, because the beavers haven't gone to bed yet, is get rid of all that mess. Because this needs to be land. And all of this well-being stuff gets to go away. We have 9 injured beavers. We had 20-something earlier, but we have currently have 9, which means we don't need all of these beds scattered absolutely everywhere. That means that gets to go away. That gets to go away. That gets to go away. These ladders are vital to the usage of our tubeways, which means they will be among the last things removed. That also means we're going to have some holes we have to patch up, and terrain is going to be kind of dicey. So what we should do is we should try to get rid of as many of these ladders as we can. We're going to need to keep at least one. Probably for the sake of building, I will keep this corner. But also note that, you know, the terrain underneath the ladders needs to go away, so it will either need to be completely removed, or we can blast a tunnel underneath, and there will just be a platform there. That's fine. But if I'm going to keep this one, I don't want to rebuild the entire ladder, so let's just put in a tunnel under there. The rest of these can be accessed by going up that way, or, because we have right here a ladder, if we just very simply put in a staircase and then have this connect that way, then this can be accessed from up here, can already be accessed from the core. And then these do connect to each other up here. I think it's going to be okay for us to take out these 3 ladders, get a bunch of planks and logs back in the process that we probably don't have anywhere to place. But that's fine. That is showbiz, as the kids say. And now we are much, much better prepared for everything else we are trying to do. Now what do I do with all these crops on the ground? Well, they either need to be picked up or they need to be discarded. And seeing how I'm trying to empty this, I don't really have space for even what I've already made. Which is unfortunate, because that means this stuff all needs to go away. But the good news is, everything that is not up on this 2nd level or 3rd level over here doesn't have to be blown up for them to start doing terrain work. All we have to do is have access to the spaces that have to be columns. So if I place right here, super simply, just have to make sure that everything else is accessible where it needs to be, which means that goes away. And this, where the forester is, goes away, so on and so forth. I'm not going to make you sit through all this mess. I am going to end up time-lapsing the placement and selective removal of what needs to be removed so we can do everything else and start the process of doing our terraforming here. Now, I know I said we're going to go through all the terraforming this episode, and you might be sitting here thinking, what the heck is this guy on? Because you haven't even started putting in all of the stuff. Well, what's going to need to happen is, because there's so much that has to be done, and it's going to take such a long time, if I'm going to time-lapse it, I'm going to have to disable the day-night cycle so we don't have absolute, like, just mayhem occurring with the lighting changes. So that is something you're going to see pop up on the screen, that just option getting checked in the, I forget, is that TimProve? I think it's TimProve that does that. So then it'll just be daylight all the time, no matter what the clock says, no matter what season it is. The sun will shine forever on our empire of dirt until it is completed to be a slightly dirtier empire of dirt. But that will just take time. You know how it goes. I will be here the entire time for hours, sitting in front of my computer managing this, so you don't have to watch another 5 episodes of terraforming. And we can get to the fun part, which is filling out everything, building out the upstairs, and seeing just how well this map can tolerate having 1,000 beavers. But yes, like I said, I don't even have to say it again. You already know. I will speak with you very shortly on the other side of what is probably going to be another 5 hours of me sitting here. Alright, so we're out of the time lapse, and we're not finished, but here's why. I have 225 dirt left. We only have 2 more levels to complete, but it's going to take enough time to get that dirt back that we might as well come out of it now and talk about what we've gotten done and what we still need to do. Now, eagle-eyed of those among you, or the past 2 hours of stuff condensed into however long that time-lapse narration was, will have noticed that, yes, I did kill the berry bushes. We've planted more. They're in the process of producing their first berry crop. We haven't run out yet, and that's good, because I still need to keep these beavers popping out, because now we have a well-being of 15, because I removed all of the well-being stuff from this corner before I got rid of everything. But we've got a decent bit of usable land that we could start planting on. And, of course, we do still have a need for this to get built out. I did put in a second forester just so we could have some of these berry bushes replanted. We will need more. So I guess what I probably should have done is just, you know, taken care of all this and not worried about it. But you know how it goes. I also put in, as you can see, a little bit of an irrigation station here. Because this was not going to be irrigated until this was completely finished, which at this point now is not happening in this episode. I know. Let your rage flow, let it fuel you and inspire you to do good things to impact those you care about. But I digress. Look, it takes so long to do this. Like, I need you to understand. I think most of you do. There's some of you who still don't seem to get it. It really does. And I don't just say it because it's a meme. It really does just take a really long time to do this. I am genuinely doing my best. That being said, we have an opportunity now to try and get the rest of this mess sorted, or at the very least discuss what we're going to do to get it sorted and move on from there. Now, I will refer here to the fantastic math that was done many episodes ago about how many crops we're going to need for 1,000 beavers. And since we're on the corn layer, let's take a look at the corn thing. This says I'm going to need 450 corn crops, 4 farms, 4 food factories, 2 engines to power those, assuming no other power is being generated. And then for that, we'll need to have enough oak trees and all that to power the engines. But just to take a look at the corn rations, 450 corn crops. Now, I'm not a math expert. However, I do believe that is 45 times 10. So what we can do is we can take our 50 wide, subtract the amount of columns that we have. Any given row averages out to probably less than like 2. But we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on these middle rows and 10 on these intermediaries here. Also, this needs to be blown up. I placed that a long time ago. Now it's taken care of. So this row has 10. Just looking from this perspective, I know it's a different going the other way. This one has 10, this one has 8, this one has 10, this one has 8. So an average between these two of 9, and then we have 3 completely uninterrupted at 50, and then 3. So for all intents and purposes, we don't need to worry about the columns impeding our math. What we do need is we need 45 rows of 10 or thereabouts. What we already have right here is probably about as much as we're going to need. This is one quadrant minus the supports, 25 minus 25, and then minus 25. Well, that's 0. 25 times 25 is... Yes, make fun of me for not doing math. All you CS majors out there, just revel in your superiority. 25 times 25 is 625. So, the way this is currently set up now is probably fine for corn. We won't need any more than that, at least not for right now. So, I'm going to leave the corn alone. We go to the next one down that I wanted to look at. Eggplant rations. We only need 300. Eggplants up here? This is, again, this is like 600. That's not eggplant. This is eggplant. Anyway, this is still 300. That's fine. The real kicker is going to be when we get into kohlrabi, which I have not planted in a very, 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 very long time. We need 675 of those. That's essentially an entire quadrant plus some, and plus maybe like another third of what it would have been because we have all these columns of the way. We also don't have enough of these farmhouses to keep up with demand. So here's where this comes in. I had discussed quite a while back about maybe putting in 2 boys above the paths here, or eliminating the paths so we'd have extra space. We don't really need all the space that we've planned out to have. We just don't. So I don't think we really need to worry about putting 2 boys in. Like, you add up all of this stuff, and at most, it's going to end up being 3 levels combined, not including the trees. And you do your math here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, technically 7. Let's call it 6. 6 complete levels, 50 by 50 minus the punch out in the middle, minus the whatever. We have like twice as much space as we're ever going to need for this, which is good. Wait a second. Oh, that needs to be fixed. That's annoying. All right, now I have to do this, or else I'm going to forget. That needs to be demolished priority, so I can then explode that from underneath, because that's the only way that's going to be possible for that to work. See, I was thinking about this whole time. I was like, how am I best going to be able to describe this? And now that I'm talking, it sounds like I'm an idiot. But we need berries. We need a lot more berries than we currently have planted, but those will spread. That will be fine. Coffee bushes, we really only need less than 100 of those. But the fermented cassava, how did I skip over this? The fermented cassava needs 900 crops. 900 crops. Don't forget. This, which I erroneously said was eggplants, so yes, boo me now. This is an entire quadrant minus this punch out, minus this, minus whatever. That is cassava. And that's all it is. And that's all it will ever be. So, let's enable this to be slightly more successful than what we had been trying to do. Put another farmhouse in here. And then probably, because this says we have to have 15 farms, we'll just go ahead and put in a couple more farmhouses in spaces where it's going to make sense to have them. So right here, right here, right here, right here, that will be 4. I know we need more than 4. We will get there at some point in time. But I do want to make sure that we have, before I forget about it, enough cassava to take care of basically everything we are ever going to need. This is already more than 900, so I think we can just leave that as it is. And these corners here that aren't irrigated hopefully will be irrigated at some point. Maybe we can figure something else out to do with those. But I digress. Cassavas are going to be taken care of without us even needing to do any of this. If we go up to the level right below here, this is the one that I had thought maybe would be a good place to put a mangrove farm. And the mangrove fruit, if we want to have mangrove fruit for every single beaver, has to have 1,125 mangrove trees. Which you don't really need to be a genius to figure out that that is going to be most of a level by the time you have everything else accounted for. I think if we just kind of, again, we haven't built all this up yet. If we just have this middle bit here with the punch outs duplicated below, following these supports around, I think we can get to 1,125 mangrove trees. I don't know if it's going to be sustainable for an entire 30-day drought to have those. I might have to mess with it. We will see. But that would, quote-unquote, solve the problem of what to do on this layer. We already talked about this one down here is eggplants, but again, we don't need all this space. So, I would like to pose to you, the viewer, who has stuck with this despite me continually saying we're going to have everything done and then it's not done. I would like to ask you, what do you think should be done here? Because I do have the option. I mean, I can just blow this entire thing up and start over if you really want, but I'd rather not do that. Do you think it would be worth taking the entire center of this top level, taking this entire reservoir out after we pumped a whole bunch of water stored enough for like 5 cycles with the amount of beavers we have, take this out, take the center of this level out too, and then make this level, which is currently on, we'll call this layer, we'll say layer 16 because that's what actually shows the beavers. Make this the bottom of the reservoir. Obviously we have this this middle bit walled off, but we make this the bottom of the reservoir, and then below that on this level would be where we would put mangroves. I think, based on the area of the remaining floors, I think we would be able to still have tons of space and possibly still have enough mangrove well-being and everything to deal with that. I don't know. I'm kind of throwing stuff out there because I'm not entirely sure. And like I always say, it is a let's play, not a watch me play. And we need other projects to occupy the beavers while they, continue getting more dirt, because I need probably another couple thousand to finish this out. Unless we're going to be having, this reservoir drop down another 2 levels. In which case, I could actually save a substantial amount of dirt. And pillars as well wouldn't have to go up all that high because we'd have the stuff in the middle. Just let me know what your thoughts are on that. Because I do want to make sure that we're investing the correct amount of time and energy into doing stuff that's going to make sense long term. And I did massively overplan all of this here. Let's take care of a couple more things before we get you out of here today. Because, again, I don't want to rush through getting something done just because I said I was going to do it and then it ends up being terrible. That benefits nobody. So let's take those out. Take those out. I think there's still... Yeah, there's some of this needs to be removed. Just want to make sure I am doing what I can here. Okay, that also can go away. Then the rest of these layers shouldn't have any of that. But hopefully you can see where I'm getting at and you can appreciate where I'm coming from with this. Like, it's complicated, right? Nobody ever said it would be easy. Nobody ever said it would be this hard. I don't know, at risk of quoting Coldplay in a serious context that doesn't involve... Never mind. We're not going to go there. But I digress. Again and again and again, repeatedly. I'm kind of stuck on what to do the rest of these layers if we don't use more space for irrigation and storing of stuff. Another thing we can do if we make the reservoirs deeper is we can have stacks of pumps that will become available as levels are depleted. I also don't know, mechanically speaking, if this map can even fill a reservoir that would be effectively, because this is already 6 deep, would be effectively 6 plus another 3 plus another 3, 12 deep by, let's say, 25, for sake of comparison, 25 by 25, which is, we've just discovered, 625 by 12 deep, which I have the power of math in my hand. 7,500 cubes of water, which I think there might have actually been math done on this too. Let's see. This is so in-depth, so detailed. I'm jealous of people whose brains work like this. Okay. Yeah, okay, the number I was given for the population for 30 days, assuming absolutely no storage and just pumping, would require 17,300 blocks of volume, which of course 7,500 is less than half of that. So, I think it's reasonable. I also don't have math on how much this source can fill in a minimum of 6 days, maximum of about 8, 9. So I don't know. We'll see. We also don't have to have this high here either. We can just shift this down and then build all the beaver structure on top of this. Like, we can keep the volume whatever you want. Just let me know your thoughts on that. But before we're done, I do want to evacuate as much of this as we can because this is all going to be gone. These are empty. This has stuff on top that is also empty. Now I feel pretty safe just getting rid of that. Of course, this is dirt storage that we do still need to have, but it will need to move at some point so we can put in a support beam right here. I know that's not a very good spot for it. So, those of you, because I know there's at least a couple of you who love to keep track of this. Yes, there are 24 injured beavers. Because I made modifications, there are no longer 24 medical beds. There are 23. And not all of them are in use, but just, you know, just to keep you guys apprised of the situation. I did put some of these in during the time lapse. Maybe you caught it, maybe you did not, but in preparation for what we are certain to entail at some point in the very near future, I will place additional medical beds in a few locations where I have space, just to make sure we are doing the best that we can. So, that should help just a little bit. Population will grow, injured beavers will grow, but now that we have 1,500 extract, and we have 722 explosives, and we will not need to explode much of anything else, I can safely remove the explosives factories, and the centrifuges, and this, and we have 450 gears. We probably need more than that, but for now, we'll be fine. Just all these little miserable things all over the place can slowly and methodically be removed and replaced with other things, like holes. That was a good movie. Good book. That is not what I wanted to get rid of. And now that we actually have some homeless beavers, it would be a great time for us to have some additional row houses available. So, last thing we'll do. I think, long term, we won't need more than 1 or 2 foresters, but if I went ahead and put one of these here, it would cover exactly the same area. I know I have this here. This isn't staying here. It's going to have to go somewhere else at some point. But this 8x8 space in the middle is the only spot on the map currently that we can use to really do much of anything. And yes, this used to be a tank. I did remove it, like we talked about, for this forester to be able to access this area here. I cannot put a forester here because there is not enough clearance. At the same time, I do want to have more blueberry bushes planted, and as we start disassembling this area, it could be advantageous for me to find a spot somewhere over here to put a forester just to plant the rest of this out and then move on from there. The rest of the map is inaccessible to it, so that's going to have to be, when we get to this quadrant and take care of most of that, what we will do with all of that stuff. All that being said, that's my reasoning for not putting another forester right here, because this one already covers everything in the middle, and so does this one. We need more housing. And what we did over here was we had this kind of set all the way in the very back, and I've got this mess of tiny two-way stations to take care of all of that stuff. Now, when we start building up from here, I don't think I'm going to want to have tiny two-way stations in a 2x2 grid all the way up, because this is already here. What we can do instead is just put in regular platforms so that they can access what they already have access to, and that's just all that's going to have to be. So we have space here to put row houses and just stack them and stack them and stack them and stack them. And since this is a 4 tall thing, all we have to do to confirm this is going to match is just pop that in right there, and look. Perfect. So, doing this here all the way back is going to make it possible for us to not have to have all of these squares just constantly touching each other. Nobody likes it when that happens. what we'll end up doing is, since we're not going to have to access every single level here, on this side, remember on this side, this is basically entirely just tiny tubeway stations. We have single high platforms in between these that I said I was going to maybe have to have some of them removed and replaced with the doubles. Well, it's a little late for that. And there's not really that much in the way of decoration that we need to put in that won't fit underneath a single that doesn't also have a larger range. What I'm trying to get at is this side is going to make just so much more sense to just have double platforms, because look, the beavers are going to be coming through here all stinking day anyway. That's all we have to do is just have platforms in place and housing in place so these guys can do what they've got to do and get on with their lives. Now all we have to do is get everything connected. And we do have the empty space in the middle that cannot be filled until we have the platforms correctly set up for all the tanks that are going to go up here, so I'm not really worried about that quite yet. Those are going to have to be put in place before this is really super viable. So these are going to be not connected for a while, but they're here, and they can be built. They use wood, they use planks, these platforms do, and it'll help us get something constructed that can still tie these areas into each other as we move along and get other stuff figured out. Because remember, all of these areas are accessible from the center because we have single high platforms going this whole way. That's the only reason we're doing this way. Go all the way down, hook these up. I know that is ugly. I accept that it is ugly. It's okay. We're going to move on. And that's what they're going to build in the middle. I know. It will just take time. But nothing worth doing is ever easy. Completely. And that is just the way it goes. So, I hope you'll take all of the rambling to heart here, as I want this to be good. I understand that I'm not like smart enough to really come up with this on my own. That's why I involve everybody. That's why I ask for your feedback, and that's why I implement as much of it as I realistically can. So now's your time to fill in that into the bargain and give me the thoughts on the reservoir height and the distribution of crops on the different layers and putting everything else into motion. Because it is just about time for us to finalize exactly what that's going to be so we can move on and start to get the population up, get those well-being things put in place, and finally redesign this stupid thing. I know, I've said like 5 to 10 episodes now, we're going to do it the next episode, and it never ends up happening, so I'm not going to commit to when this is going to happen. I'm just going to say it will happen when we are able to do it. And I did talk earlier this episode, I know there's been a whole lot of just whatever happening here, but I did talk earlier this episode about what I would like to do. So if you have thoughts on that, please do let me know those. Just for a refresher so you don't have to scroll all the way back. I'm wanting this to come out 90 degrees and then go back and forth probably all the way down so we can generate ideally 3,000 or 4,000 HP from that. And then whatever else we can't make from that, we'll get from engines. I don't want it all the way up against the map, because the edge of the map, because it's going to mess with the lines of this. Yes, I'm that petty about it. But I think it'll be fine just going between these columns here so we don't touch anything, don't pollute anything. We could just move on from there. We have to wait fundamentally for the dirt excavators to catch up. 4 of these can only give us 24 dirt every 2 hours. It's an 18-hour day. And you're not going to get 9 full cycles of production out of these every single day. So we can't do all of this at once. It will just take time. But all that being said, I really do appreciate you being here. I will put this on, since we are pretty stable, I will put this on 30 times speed while I do this. And I have all these pumps paused anyway. I really do appreciate you being here, giving your patience, your time, and your expertise in many cases to making this happen, because I could not do it by myself, and I will not do it by myself. But we're having fun, and that's what matters, and your input is what makes this stuff possible. Never forget. Beard Boosters, of course, subsidizing everything, so I don't have to go court sponsorships for stuff nobody cares about, just so I can keep my lights on. I don't know, I appreciate you guys. I hope it comes across, because you are the reason why I get to do this, why I get to say that this is my primary job now, playing with beavers on the internet, and hopefully inspiring people to be a little bit more positive and helpful and kind to other people in a world that so desperately needs it. Because we can just have a fun time playing with beavers. None of the other stuff matters. So, those folks do make it possible. I always want to make sure we recognize them. But that is where today's episode ends, friends. Have a fantastic rest of your day. We'll be back in this series on Saturday. Yes. Day of the week math is hard. It's been a very long day. But I do hope you'll come back and see our colony submissions tomorrow and Thursday, and then all sorts of other fun with the water beavers as well. Whatever it is you're doing, stay safe, have fun, and we will see you later. Bye-bye.